Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. And this is a little bit of an emergency pod. It's a pre-emergency pod. It's a pre-emergency pod because stuff hasn't happened, but it might happen. And a big thing in betting is you got to be able to be ready to react to stuff both before it happens and after. And we're going to try and do that today when it comes to a potential trade of Damian Lillard to any number of places, probably Miami, but we'll talk about it. We'll get into all of it, and everything that we talk about in the bets that we'll discuss can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. It's the best way for you to track your bets. You can follow my co-host Brandon Anderson and I's bets in there as well. You can get notifications to see when we're moving on stuff. I did make 2 bets that we'll talk about based off of stuff I was hearing last night that may or may not be completely dead today, and I do not regret them. You can find all of that as well as all of our great stuff. Our live shows are in there as well. You're going to find great stuff like, how about Nick Geffen's overtime model, which hit last week? How about first touchdown last night from Joe Gallant? How about Sean Kerner and Nick Geffen's luck rankings? How about the Sunday 6-pack for football with Chris Raybon and Stuckey? How about all of our win total content, which I am currently trying to slog through while dealing with this mess of a trade? Lots of stuff to talk about in the award-winning Action Network app. Also want to ask you to follow our YouTube page. Go to youtube.com and find the Action Network YouTube page, and you'll be able to see all of our shows, our live shows, the recorded shows, all sorts of great stuff. Give us a like and subscribe. It's the best way for you to support us right now is to follow us on YouTube. So appreciate you guys doing that. I'm joined today by Brandon Anderson. He's NBA futures analyst, and that's important that we get a futures analyst on here, Brandon, because trying to anticipate what's going to happen is going to be a little bit wild. I have a whole lot to get to in terms of what I've heard about the Damian Lillard situation. Stuff started picking up on Wednesday, and I was kind of like, meh. And then Thursday went a little bit crazy last night, and it's continued on. We're recording this. I want to kind of timestamp this. We're recording this at 1:52 Eastern on Friday. By 1:53 Eastern, everything could have changed. And that's going to be kind of how it is. We're going to talk a little bit about possibilities and potentials, but I will tell the listener right now up front, everything we're going to talk about is speculative, and I'm trying to find you value about in the event of, with consideration for the possibility that certain things will or will not occur.
Yeah, I think to me, the way I'm thinking of it is 2 things. Number one, are there any bets? Are there any futures? Because obviously we're only on futures right now. There are no games to play. Are there any futures that I want to get in right now before anything officially happens, before the market can move, because I'm going to like the bet anyway. I'll like it even more this way. So let me grab that now. That's one possibility. And then number 2, is there an angle that we can get you ready for so that, okay, the news dropped. Here's one of the angles we talked about. That one's in play now. Go. Here's the angle I want to grab. Here's let me pull up. I've got right now NBA futures betting odds page at Action Network. I got to have this page. Like, I'm just going to be a shill for the page because I'm seeing all the different books, all the different odds, and to be able to pull that up and say, okay, I'm ready to bet Heat title odds right now. If that's you, where am I going to get that at? What's the best number? Is it at BetMGM? Are there other prices out there? So I think getting you ready for, is there a bet now to make in anticipation? And is there a bet that you should be ready to pull the trigger on? And I think that's what we should talk through. So what can you tell us right now about what we know or think we know about the Dame situation?
Okay, I'll start with this. We don't know anything. Here's what I feel comfortable relaying. I would say that the probability of DeAndre Ayton being a Portland Trailblazer by the time the training camp starts is above 50% at this point, and creeping up towards 75%. Every iteration of the deal that I have heard about, and believe me, I've heard a lot, and trying to piece through this stuff is really messy and really gross. This stuff is just disgusting, and you get tired of it and you want to ignore all of it. I don't blame anybody for being like, this is all smoke, this is all noise, none of this is real. Don't blame you, because that's how it feels when I get like 8 texts that are all saying a different thing. It's really like, I don't know, man. He's going to Mars. I don't know. But I do feel like DeAndre Ayton is going to wind up being a Portland Trailblazer. The reason for that, it sounds like, is that Phoenix is trying to add. Phoenix got pulled into conversations with Portland and basically said, we'll provide Ayton and we'll take Nurkic if you can provide 1 to 2 other role players that we're interested in from whoever you do this deal with. Which is why on Thursday there was a lot of talk about the possibility of a trade with Toronto again. That Toronto would be sending one of the big 3 names, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, almost definitely OG. Like, I don't have that confirmed, but from a speculative, logical standpoint, OG makes the most sense. The OG would wind up going to Phoenix as part of that component, and that'd be like a great trade for Phoenix, right? You send out Ayton, you replace him with Nurkic, a totally okay, not great starting center, but it's not an upgrade. It's a little bit of a downgrade, but it's not a massive one. You replace the rebounding and size that Ayton provides, and you get an A+ wing defender like OG Anunoby. That makes a lot of sense, right? So like that conversation I think was held, and like there was some traction there to the point where I think people really started to be like, hey, this might actually occur. And then it fell apart again. My understanding is that the same reason that it always falls apart, which is the Raptors did not get it. Like, I think my understanding is that every time that teams are like, I think so we got this, Toronto's like, yeah, no, we got it, if you'll also give us 2 first-round picks and the blood of your firstborn son. And then everyone's like, what are we doing here? So my understanding is that may have expired. What we're running into here is, in my opinion, this is a reading of the tea leaves. I'm not like in the room with Joan Cronin, right? My understanding is that a lot of what's going on here is talks advance, and then one of the other teams comes in and says, "Hey, ooh, okay, we'll talk. We'll be serious now," and that's changed. I think a lot of this. There is still a Miami deal that gained a lot of traction this morning, and it's a 4-way deal with Phoenix, Indiana, Miami, and Portland. That's like, those 4 teams have been in conversation about a potential deal. And again, Phoenix still sends Ayton to Portland and all these kind of things. My understanding essentially is that because the Blazers are having such a hard time finding a signature talent to get back, they can't find a blue chipper to get back. Like the Heat keep trying to be like, Nikola Jovic, what about the 8th best player in FIBA World Cup? Or Jaime Jaquez. There's been talk this morning that it's going to be both of the young guys, and I'm skeptical of that. Like, I think that Miami winds up keeping one of those dudes. But Ayton would be like the blue chipper that goes there. Now, I don't know that there's like a bet to be made on Ayton going to Portland. I don't know that there's like a bet that has value there. If it's OG to Phoenix, which I don't think is, again, I've heard that that's over. Okay. But if that were a possibility, if like that want to be in the deal, I would have interest in Phoenix at that point. Like, let's start there. Let's try and attack this from that perspective. Is the most likely outcome here, if we talk about the framework that's being discussed, is Ayton goes to Portland, Nurkic goes to Phoenix, and then Phoenix gets some other role players, whether that's Caleb Martin, or if it's a more, obviously they would want OG. I don't think they're going to get it. There's talk of the Pacers sending pieces to Phoenix, not Buddy Hield, notably. I haven't heard that there's been no connection for Hield to Phoenix in this construct. So I want to ask you, let's start there from a betting standpoint. Do we feel like there is an angle to take on Phoenix with the possibility of moving Ayton out, adding Nurkic, and then if we kind of do an equation here of Nurkic plus N, and N can be whatever, like X, and X can be whatever. Like X can be rotation player. Let's say not star, but rotation player. What are your thoughts on Suns futures from that perspective?
Yeah, I'm trying to think through this. We know I do NFL too. So my NFL article that goes up now on Fridays is how to bet every team, every game. So I'm trying to think of that perspective. Okay, so let's do how are we betting every team that might be involved here? What's the angle? If I want to bet on Phoenix, what's the angle? So I think you start with, okay, Ayton and Nurkic. if we're swapping out Ayton for Nurkic, that's the big four. That's the fourth guy out of their lineup, presumably. So how do we feel? I've not been a strong DeAndre Ayton proponent over the years, let's say kindly, but Yusuf Nurkic, you've spoken a little more kindly of him than I can say. Like, I think Nurkic used to be underrated. I know you saw a lot of Nurkic up close because he played in Denver, so I know you got to see a lot of him there. I think I'm not going to say old or washed because those are both overstated terms, and I'm 40, so let's be real. But like, I don't feel like Nurkic is a dude that's going to be on the court for Phoenix in the Western Conference Finals Game 7 closing minutes. Like, I don't think that's that dude. I don't see it. Where at least Ayton's going to be out there. He might be the reason we all make fun of them for losing, but he's going to be on the court. I don't know if Nurk's going to be out there. I don't know if Nurk's going to make it that far into the season health-wise. Like, his health history is very troubling to me with the age profile. So to me, even though I'm not high on Ayton to Nurk on its own is a pretty clear downgrade to me. So now I'm going to have to make up for it with the plus X in the equation. And I'm going to have to say, okay, who is it? Is it Caleb Martin? Is it a couple of role players? And I'm now replacing, I don't know, Keita Bates-Diop minutes or Yuta Watanabe's minutes. Like, I'm upgrading those minutes of those literally replacement guys, all the minimum salary guys that they got. I'm upgrading that in the exchange for what I think is a pretty clear downgrade at center. I'm going to have a hard time making enough upgrades elsewhere to make up for I think DeAndre Ayton on the Phoenix Suns roster probably leads the team in minutes this year, or at least is like second. Like, he's going to have more minutes than Durant and Beal, who don't play all the games. I don't know, maybe Booker leads the team, but it's a lot of minutes. And Nurk is going to be a lot less minutes, so now I got to play my backup centers. I don't see enough there. I think it's a worse defense. To me, it's a downgrade for Phoenix. I don't really understand what they think they're getting out of this. We don't know. We don't know the players, but I'm not in on Phoenix anyway. I'm not looking to put my futures into them, but I'm definitely less excited about it with this construct in mind. How are you feeling about them?
So when I started looking at the Pacific Division, and I did the Suns first on win totals, of course I did them first.
That's on you. Come on. You had to know that this was a possibility.
I didn't, honestly. I thought that they were like, they made a lot of noise about, no, Vogel's going to get Ayton back in. Like, he's going to bring him back in. And then, no. So last night I bet Suns plus 170 to win the Pacific Division at BetMGM.
Okay.
I put 2.5 units on that. And
you like this.
The thought process is, okay, if I liked them before, and I did, like, we will talk about when we do Pacific Division starting in 2 weeks. Like, we've already talked about it. You and I are going to rumble over the Warriors, and that's fine. But if my prior is that I like the Suns of any of the Pacific Division teams, they're the ones I think have the highest floor. They have a high ceiling and a high floor for me.
Okay.
So if I like them anyway, if this deal does not go through, if everything falls apart and they got to get Ayton back in the fold, I still like the idea of Vogel being able to do it. So both bets that I put in last night were built upon, this is an okay bet if it happens or if it doesn't, which I want to be really clear is how you should think about this if you're looking to bet the situation before it goes down. Do not make a bet based off of, it's like they're nearing a deal. Don't, even if it's from Shams or Woj, right? Or Haynes. Even if it's from one of the big three, because especially if it's Toronto, but in general, just because those talks can fall apart and now you're left with you're on the hook for something that you didn't like unless an event occurred.
Yeah, just to give an example of that, last summer, I'm trying to think exactly the circumstances. Whenever the latest Kevin Durant drama was, like a year ago, and I remember being like, you know what? Would he go back to Golden State? Because if he went back, that would just be like we won the title again. Like, I hope it doesn't happen as a fan, but like, on the off chance he does, I would really want that ticket at this long number. But if he doesn't come, hi, I'm Brandon. I'll take a Warriors futures ticket. That'd be fine with me, thank you. So I put that in, and it didn't end up paying off that way, but it still was like a ticket I was okay to have in the portfolio for later. So that's where you're with the Suns, is saying, okay, I feel good about it. I'll like it even more probably, so I'll get the price on it now.
Well, and here's like a good example of like the long play across the NBA season, right? Is when KD asked out, and I heard immediately Phoenix was like the move. I bet Phoenix to win the title then.
Yeah.
And then when Kyrie asked out, before KD, it was known KD was going to get dealt. Just as soon as Kyrie had demanded a trade, I bet two teams. I bet the Nets and I bet the Suns. And the thinking was, if KD stays and they get something back, that Nets team is still probably pretty good. And if not, he's going to Phoenix, and that bet will have value. And a reasonable response would be like, yeah, but Matt, they didn't win the title. No, but you know what that ticket gave me? It gave me a huge opportunity to bet with confidence when I felt that Denver was better with Phoenix. I knew I could do that all the way up to the ticket value I had on Phoenix prior, because I've got it hedged, because I knew that they were going to be facing the inferior team in the Western Conference Finals. So again, we talk about portfolio betting. That's a situation where having the Phoenix ticket helped me a ton for being able to bet more aggressively later. I wish I'd done the same thing with all those Celtics tickets and bet the Heat, but alas, you can't win them all. So that's one of the bets I put in, was I bet the Suns to win the division. That way I don't have to worry about playoffs. I don't have to worry about health. I don't have to worry about what this looks like. There's a number of ways in which this trade isn't even that good for them, and they still wind up winning the division at plus 170.
Yeah, and that's I like the idea of a division, because specifically my response to the Nurkic 8 in the thing was, well, what about Game 7, Western Conference Finals, end of May? No longer in play, not relevant. In fact, now X and Y players, the better depth players, the guys soaking up all those minutes in the season, helps your bet, helps the regular season odds, because now Caleb Martin or whoever it is that comes in is like, okay, that mattered. Those extra 1,000 minutes of him as our fifth or sixth guy on the team, I don't know, he might be the third in minutes with the way that Beal and Durant's health is at. Like, these guys coming in might end up being like look at like the Lakers roster last year, who's leading in minutes, and its guys aren't on the team anymore. It's not LeBron and Davis. Like, that's where we're going with Phoenix. So from a regular season point of view, that makes sense that this can upgrade them. So you talked about Portland, obviously. So I'm doing the every team thing. So go to Portland here for a second. If Portland gets Ayton, what's the way to bet it? I don't know that there is I don't know that you're like rushing to grab an over or under on the win total. We're obviously not looking to play division. We're not looking to like bet coach of the year. I do have a Portland angle. Do you have any Portland betting angle that you want to give out?
I don't. There's a Superbook has got them up at 23.5, and the number's too low. But this team is going to be pretty terrible. Like, you just can't have a second-year player in Shaedon Sharpe and a first-year point guard in Scoot Henderson, and then Anthony Simons empty calories. Sorry, and be like, yeah, no, they're going to win 30 games. And so, like, I don't. It's like, if I was going to bet anything, what would I bet? Probably like 23.5. I'm probably at like a slide over, but I don't like the coaching. I don't like it. Like, I have a hard time finding anything, and there's not going to be any value in the market. I would think of some sort of derivative like division finishing position, but even then it's going to be such a massive negative. I don't want to invest. It's not going to be worth the investment, I don't think.
Yeah, so I think I agree with all of that. I don't really have a team-specific one, but I think you're missing an obvious one that I didn't even think of. We talked about this last night, and I didn't think of this till just we're on now. Scoot Henderson, Rookie of the Year. Get it now. Oh, yeah. This is the moment, because the moment that Dame is officially not on the roster anymore, I promise you those odds have to shorten, because voila, we just freed up 30 points a game and 8 assists, or whatever all the numbers are off the top of my head. It's Scoot now. Like, let's be clear. We're already pricing that somewhat in. Like, we're already assuming Dame is probably gone, but those numbers can only shorten a little bit. And right now, at BetMGM, Scoot is plus 450. Our action tool is showing that is the best price on the market. Plus 450 is too long. I see a plus 350, a plus 250 out there, and a 300. I want that 450, and I don't think that 450 lasts the moment that a Dame trade is official. So if you listen, go listen to the Rookie of the Year pod. Both of us are in on Scoot. We talked about when to bet it. I think this is the time. I think you want the Scoot ticket. You better grab it because the moment a trade is official, then the green light is for Scoot to win Rookie of the Year after that. Do you agree with that one?
Yeah, so the conversation has been very much like this is going to get done before the weekend is the expectation from people. Before the weekend's done, rather. Like, I just think that we've held on to these things enough that I'm always a little bit like, man, I don't know. I will say that there's been a very big shift in the conversations with people that I've had where it was like, hey, Portland's not saying anything. They may just go into the season and deal with this. And then like this week, it's been very much like, no, it sounds like they don't want to start the season like this. They want to get it done. Media day is October 2nd. So, if that's the deadline, maybe you've got a couple of days. I would say that, yeah, if there is an urgent bet to make, then right now, it's Scoot. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you like the Scoot angle, I think grab it now. It's hard to imagine what the trade is, what Portland nets that makes you not want Scoot. Because they're trying to build around him. Like that's part of the point of all this. They're not going to be like, oh, whoops, we brought in a point guard now as the main asset. Like, no, that's the whole. They're trying to get down Raiden, not a point guard. So whoever it is, it's not going to be something that hinders the Scoot thing. It really can only help that. And yeah, so I think grab that now if you can. I don't know that we even need to talk about Indiana per se, just because they're so peripheral to like, we don't even know if they're involved or what would happen. Yeah. We'll get there and we get to the win total.
Team, and that could be there's like a lot of teams that could get in there. I've heard Dallas. I've heard Brooklyn. Like there's a bunch of different ones that I've heard kind of thrown in there.
So to me, the Portland takeaway is just that I agree with what you said. Is like, I think that where there's smoke, there's fire. Like there's a lot of smoke suddenly again now, and I have to interpret this as knowing no sources or anything as like, okay, this has got to be happening now. Like we can't be doing this again right on the cusp of the season. Like Dame's out. Like I don't know what's happening. I don't know where he's going. I don't know who's coming in, but I know Portland is probably not going to have Dame, so I had to bet Scoot.
So let's talk Miami.
Yeah.
All right. I bet Miami 12-1 when they didn't trade Scoot on draft night.
Yeah. Wait. Let me lead with a question. Okay. Based on everything you know, and that can be all the stuff you said on here and stuff that you know and can't report yet. And maybe you can't answer this question, but I'll ask it anyway. From 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, from 2 weeks ago till now, are you more or less confident that Damian Lillard in this moment is going to be a Miami Heat player this year?
I am less confident.
Okay. So we think that perhaps then the market is perhaps overconfident that he would still be a Heat player. So I think that I thought it was important to lead with that because that's going to inform where we're going with this. So You got your Heat future in already. Tell me about the bet you put in last night, thinking that, okay, he might not be on the Heat after all.
We were on a text chain. It's me, Brandon, and our former colleague, Raheem Palmer, who now works for the Ringer Gambling Show. And you can catch that show, and it's great. And like we all had like the same idea. Like you said it, and I was like, that was where I was going to go too. And it's Hawks division, and it's plus 220 at BetMGM. The thought process is, okay, I like the Hawks. I like Quinn Snyder, Coach of the Year. I like their upside. They have trade potential. There's a large runway here for them to jump back near 50 where they were 2 seasons ago. Like there's a runway for Atlanta to become a serious team again. Even no matter how you feel about Trey, he did lead a playoff team that got to the conference finals. Like he did that, right? And so with Quinn Snyder on board and with what I expect for an internal addition and the possibilities of all the trades that they've also kind of floated, there's enough there for me to like this bet in a vacuum of just like plus 220 for them to be able to win the division regular season performance. That to me is like the only real way to bet this. I wouldn't bet Heat under because the price in the market on the Heat is still factoring in. It's basically it's 48.5 to 49.5, depending on where you find it. It's basically in the middle of where I think they're doing what they do with the lines when they do on a game, and they're not sure if a guy's going to be in there. We talk about this all the time about that kind of like shadow zone of it's 48.5. If Dame doesn't go to Miami, it goes to 46.5. If Dame does go to Miami, it's 50.5. And I don't know that those are absolutely the numbers that'll get there. They'll probably take a lot of money afterwards too, and it'll move. So, and you say like, well, you could get a better price on Atlanta then. Yeah, but like my certainty of Atlanta winning this bet, if Dame goes to Miami, goes way down. And my confidence in Atlanta winning the division, and bear in mind, like they should still be a dog, even if Miami doesn't get Dame. Like that's how much Atlanta has underperformed. I have to be realistic about that. But plus 220, the scenario is like, all right, let's say Dame gets traded there, but they lose a lot of depth. They've lost Max Strus. They've lost Gabe Vincent. They would lose probably Caleb Martin. They would lose Kyle Lowry. He's gone no matter what in that deal. Tyler Hero's a maybe. That one's very undecided on whether Tyler Hero goes in this deal or not. They lose one of the kiddos. There's a lot of talk about them having to trade both of the young guys, Jovic and Jaquez. I don't think that happens. I think Miami finds a way to add one on. They are trying, I think, to add another piece from whoever they get in a four-way deal. They want to add another rotation guy. And I don't know if they'll get it done, but that would hurt this bet, and I would lose value if it's like they get Dame and they get Buddy Hield. They get Dame and they get somebody from Phoenix. They get Dame and they get insert player from fourth team. That hurts this bet, but it was a small bet at plus 220, but that to me is like the best way to fade the possibility of Miami not getting him. If you ask me on percentage chances of them getting him, I'm still going to go 70% or higher that Miami gets him. But I was like 90% 2 weeks ago that this was just going to be like, look, they're not going to find anything and Miami's going to get this because the star players always get what they want. There's enough noise in the last 24 hours for me to be like, okay, I'm willing to make a small bet at plus 220 on a regular season Hawks bet, effectively as in the event that the Heat don't get Dame.
Yeah, and I think like it's hard confidence in these things, like 90% confident, 70% confident. We're guessing, we're making up numbers on that. We don't know as humans how to like actually put a real percentage, but in a betting market, that's the key. Like that matters. That extra 20% of no Dame on the team. They lost a lot of pieces this summer. They lost starters off of an NBA Finals team and basically didn't replace them. And I know the Heat can just like go down to the park and be like, hey, you're our starting center now. You're great. Congratulations. Like, I know this is a thing they keep on doing, but I think you have to factor in like the potential depth loss if it doesn't happen. So if there is no trade, or if it's a trade that doesn't come with the extra compartments and pieces that you're talking about, I think you factor that in. So just to be clear, Raheem actually was the Hawks idea. So I give credit to Raheem on it. I just chimed in afterward. I was too busy watching football, I believe. But I'm curious if we should maybe even go a little further down the board. So we'll get into the win totals when we get there. But as of this moment, while Miami stands as they are, I have the Heat at 41-41, basically a 500 roster, which I don't get all the slander I'm going to get for that, I'm sure. But so Miami 41 wins. I have Atlanta 42. I have Orlando 39. Like I have all three of those teams right in my play-in zone right now. So I'm looking at Orlando. Orlando right now at BetMGM is 8-1. I see a 9-1 out there on them. We talked about the Magic. Obviously, we had Paulo at FIBA. We had Franz at FIBA. Whatever the same logic is the logic there that I don't think that it's time to directly fade the Heat or that there's a great way to do it. You have to sort of indirectly fade them by buying in on something else. We can't necessarily do that with a conference bet or a title bet because there's a multiverse of options. In the division, we get it down to 5 and, Wizards, Hornets. So maybe we get it down to 3. What about Magic? How about Magic at like 8-9-1 range? Same premise, but if you like them, is the ceiling or floor low enough for the other teams, for the current Miami and what the Hawks are, is it fair to say that they might kind of float around 500? And could Orlando be in that mix, or could they at least be in the mix enough that you want that ticket and now you got some options later?
I don't, just because I think you're a year early on them. I think that, I bet the over on them last year. Love that bet. Cashed. It was great. And I like this team a lot. I think I have a little bit of concern about their ceiling. And I think that to win the division, it's going to be rare that we're going to see like last year where it's basically a 500 team wins the division. I think that you're still going to, on most years, you're going to need something that's like 43, 44. Yeah. And that to me feels like
it's asking a lot for Orlando.
It's asking a lot for Orlando. So that's kind of where I get to is Atlanta, I feel like has a much higher, like the range of like 80% of their ceiling is like 48 wins and like 100% of their ceiling is like 52. Right. We have this big range where they outperform Miami to win the division versus Orlando. It's like you're basically betting Orlando to win the division is a parlay. Betting Orlando is betting for them to reach their ceiling and for Miami and Atlanta to both perform to either average performance based off of your assessment or below that. And that to me, I think is
and for Dame not to go to Miami. That's all part of the parlay.
And for Dame not to go to Miami. Right. So all of those factors involved, I think, make that in a bet. If there is a Damian Lillard trade over the weekend or whenever it happens, we'll do an emergency pod and with me and I'll try to get Brandon. And if football has him occupied, we'll get the other Buckets crew on there to run through it. We'll break down exactly how to bet it and all the impacts of it. You can count on that in your feed. My thanks, David Payne, for producing this. He doesn't know he's going to be producing this, so I get to drop him that text here in a little bit. I appreciate him doing that, as well as our video crew for getting this up on the site. This has been How to Bet Damian Lillard trade before it happens here on the Action Network's NBA pod. Till next time, let's get buckets.